Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, or good night, however and whenever you may be listening. Thank you for stopping into another fantabulous episode of the Take It Easy podcast. I appreciate every single one of you. We got a good show today. We're going to talk DeMar, DeRozan, Anthony Davis, some college football rivalries. Maybe we'll throw in a gambling pick at the end here. And whoa! Let's slow the bleep down here. We gotta just tackle this first. As I'm reading right now, the Padres have just traded for outfielder Trent Grisham. Oh my Lord. They signed Drew Pomeranz. Oh my God. Wow. Okay. I'm trying to just comprehend what the heck just happened in the baseball world. Oh my goodness. The Padres just traded for Trent Grisham. Okay. Wow. Let's digress for a moment here. Trent Grisham is the dude that booted that ball in the outfield to close out the World Series. They traded their second baseman of the future for him and Zach Davies. There's top high-end prospects and veteran pitchers. Wow. This shows that they didn't think too highly of him. Jesus. So, let me just try real quick to process what is happening, because the Padres acquired... They had Urias pegged as their second baseman of the future, and now we're looking at the potential of... So, now that they have Grisham... Wow. I thought it would be Keston Hiura if they were going to make the deal like this. Shows they didn't believe too highly in Urias' offensive ability, and they're still looking for a second baseman of the future. The club has not yet confirmed. In short, it's an upside swap for both players, and we'll see, because Keston Hiura, I thought, was the second baseman of the future for the Brewers, and then we'll see what happens with Urias. The Padres had to give up a high upside young hitter. Urias just couldn't ever get the hitting going, which sucks on his part, and who knows what Davies will end up being. Probably something a little stronger than Lauer. Wow, so this is one of the rare times I get to react to news as it breaks here on the podcast, as I pulled up ESPN to find Anthony Davis stuff. Sometimes we just go off the rails like that.
Luis Urias.
All right, so Anthony Davis. This is where I was planning to start the show before that happened. He's on his way to New Orleans. He's probably in New Orleans to play against his former team for the first time tonight. It should be a very interesting game, something that I really want to watch, but I'm going to talk about the revenge game as a whole. So what Anthony Davis going back to New Orleans means, and what for the baby Lakers it means playing the Lakers again. So we'll start with the obvious, the Anthony Davis side. And Anthony Davis requested a trade, as we know, and we expect him to be booed, not because of, I think as a combination of the way it went down, and also the fact that he didn't win anything with the Pelicans. If you win, Kawhi Leonard is going to get the loudest ovation ever. Bogdanovich is going to get an ovation in Indiana because, he's nice. And when Anthony Davis left, it was obviously on sour terms. He knew he was going to be a free agent and didn't want to be in New Orleans anymore. It set the wheels in motion that will actually push the franchise forward into the future, but that was because they got Zion Williamson along with the deal. Just sweetened everything for them. And then added Jackson Hayes and Nickeil Alexander-Walker along with the 4 baby Lakers that they got. It makes for an interesting dynamic because the Pelicans should be happy with what they have, maybe not in the short term, and they don't get to see Zion play tonight, which would have been the ultimate tease if Zion led the Pelicans over Anthony Davis. And the Pelicans fans could tout that over their former star. The Lakers could obviously laugh because they're 15-2, best team in the league. December 19th, they play the Bucks. Super excited for that. Looking too far down the road. And all in all, it should be a fun game. Now for the baby Lakers, they are out to prove themselves big time tonight, because this is easier for me to talk about, because as a Laker fan, we always had expectations going into every year. Not that they would be a great team, that they would make the playoffs, but that we would see significant improvement because we had a young player to be excited about every year. First it was D'Angelo Russell. Well, first it was Jordan Clarkson and Julius Randle. But then Randle got hurt to his first game of his career, missed an entire season. So it was Randle, and then it was Clarkson, because Clarkson started balling out. Then it was D'Angelo Russell when we got the number 2 pick. And then it was Brandon Ingram. And we were like, okay, this dude is like young Kevin Durant. But yeah, so it was Brandon Ingram, then it was Lonzo Ball next, and then to trade D'Angelo Russell, the hype was just out of its mind for Lonzo Ball. And then we added LeBron, and it's like, okay, now we're going to make that next step. And every year they were disappointing, no matter what, including the year Lonzo was a rookie, but maybe the expectations were blown out of proportions on that sense. Every year ended in disappointment despite all the expectations. So the baby Lakers were disappointing, not because of their performance, sometimes because of their performance. You could say D'Angelo Russell was disappointing for his performance, and Lonzo Ball was disappointing for his performance. Brandon Ingram was disappointing because of the results, and the fact that we were always looking down the road at Paul George or LeBron James or whatever. So by virtue of the team being disappointing, the baby Lakers, every year we left feeling disappointment towards the baby Lakers. Is that fair? No. Is that what normal human reaction is? Yes. Should it be that way? No. Just think rationally through things. But that's not how sports work. With sports, we look to place blame everywhere. Do I blame AJ Preller for trading all those, or for getting all those top players and trading our young assets for the Padres? Yes. Should I? No. Because I was happy when it happened, and then when it didn't work out, I got mad. I then believed in a process that just traded Luis Urias, but it doesn't matter. We have Ty France. Sorry to bounce off track there. So the baby Lakers always felt disappointment, and now they all got traded out for Anthony Davis. And obviously, Brandon Ingram can play great for the New Orleans Pelicans, and they may not win a lot of games, but he can put up 24 points a game, and we still got Anthony Davis. So there's no real discourse there, because Anthony Davis is amazing too. And Anthony Davis, combined with all the other pieces they put around him, actually builds a winning team, unlike Brandon Ingram and a bunch of baby Lakers right now. With time, that team is going to be a playoff contender, and barring injuries derailing Zion's career, he's going to be a 10-time All-Star. Maybe not with the Pelicans. I really hope that he forces his way out after 3.5 years and goes to a different team. But he has to prove himself first, so it's a slippery slope to be playing on. The baby Lakers are out to really prove something tonight, and they're doing it in their new home building in a very hostile environment. This is one that everyone should sit down and watch at 6:30 tonight, because this is not quite the LeBron return. This is not quite as crazy as the Kyrie return on opening night. Not as crazy as Paul George going back to Indiana. But other than that, there's very few I can think of where this game is more meaningful in terms of a return home game. So I am very excited. This is the game of the night. We may not be able to recap it except for a little bit, but regardless, Anthony Davis's return to New Orleans is tonight. It's going to be really fun, and focus on how the baby Lakers play tonight more than Anthony Davis, because Anthony Davis is going to try and hero ball it. The Lakers are probably going to win, but it's basketball. It's funky. I couldn't even give you a prediction tonight on who's going to win on a gambling line. I want to say my Lakers because they're just better than the Pelicans, but the Pelicans are hella motivated, especially Brandon Ingram. If Lonzo plays, Josh Hart, all those dudes are motivated to get it done tonight. All right, that's a transition right there if I've ever heard one. So DeMar DeRozan trade rumors are really heating up, and this is something that's interesting to talk about because we know kind of what DeRozan is at this point, and he's slowly going into decline. He's definitely still a top 30 player. If your team has DeMar DeRozan as its best player, you're probably the Spurs. The Spurs are playing not great this year, but I feel like the Spurs are better than the record shows because they're the Spurs. They won 50 games last year with Aldridge and DeRozan. Aldridge might actually be the best player on the Spurs now, but DeRozan is obviously the go-to guy, and that's part of the issue is because DeRozan can't be a go-to guy. DeRozan has the ability to opt out of $27 million this offseason and become a free agent again. Expect him to do that just to secure the long-term financial stability. And there's already whispers now of the Spurs looking to shop him around with that one year left on his deal, the way Marc Gasol was shopped last year. So obviously there's been two teams that have shown significant interest. One we know is Orlando, and we're fairly confident the second is Miami. And there was a fun scare on Monday night where Justice DeRozan wiped his Instagram clean, and then Justice Winslow, James Johnson, and I forgot who the last person was, were all not on the bench at the time. So there's a little bit of a freak out. I like that situation. If we have DeRozan, Jimmy Butler, and the three youngins for Miami, I like that team. Anyways, so I wanted to talk DeMar DeRozan trade rumors because it could shift the balance specifically if he goes back to the Eastern Conference, because most of the good teams in the Eastern Conference have the assets to acquire DeRozan, and do they have the will to? We talked about Miami right there. The package would be centered around James Johnson, Justice Winslow. James Johnson, I feel like, is perfect for a Popovich reboot because his skill level, Popovich always needs people like him in his on his team. And then Justice Winslow, obviously a great young piece to build around. They don't really need him much anymore because Jimmy Butler wants to be the stretch forward who plays point guard, which is exactly Justice Winslow's mold, so they'd rather go get a star player in exchange for him. A good strategy for sure. Pat Riley knows his team at this point, and Kendrick Nunn can handle the ball too. There's just so many big ball handlers on that team right now. But they're playing great, and they haven't had too many bad losses this season. Their only bad loss was to Minnesota off a back-to-back. Orlando's a very interesting case because Orlando, again, always struggles. They have so many forwards and not enough guards. Evan Fournier is still there, I believe, putting up numbers as their big perimeter scoring option. Aaron Gordon and Vucevic have both shot more threes this year than they did last year. Issue is Aaron Gordon and Vucevic have sprained ankles together. Vucevic is out for at least a month, and Aaron Gordon is out indefinitely. So they could really fall off the map in that month. Probably still make the playoffs in the East because the East doesn't have very many good teams. Like Chicago and Charlotte had that crazy finish where Levine hit the game winner that I never got to talk about. Holy hell, that was incredible. Won the game, and two, how fast I was able to just articulate right there. So they were like 6-11 after that win, both of them, and somehow they were tied for 10th in the Eastern Conference. I'm like, this conference is so crappy. So if Orlando swung a deal for DeRozan, it would probably be centered around Jonathan Isaac, who's now playing like a stretch five. Maybe they would get Patty Mills or something to balance money if they wanted to trade Fournier. I don't know. Trying to make the money work on that. They would maybe trade Bismack Biyombo. in the last part of his contract. Or is Bismack's in Charlotte? Who'd they get? Oh, did they get Mozgov? They got one of those crappy contracts that they could send to San Antonio. But basically the deal would have to include Isaac. They may be more willing to part with Gordon, but now that he's hurt, that may not be as realistic a possibility. Yeah. They're willing to part with Aaron Gordon because of his big contract too. Maybe a DeRozan for Gordon swap would make a lot of sense.